I must have been around 6. Could have been 5, but I always say 6 because it feels closer to how big I remember feeling. This was before we moved, before everything sort of reset, so most of the memories from that time come back to me like pieces of an old dream. Some parts clear, others just fog. We'd started the day at the Willow Ridge Mall. It was always the three of us on Saturdays, me, my mom, and my little brother who was still in a stroller back then. He couldn't even talk yet. We were at the mall for what felt like hours. I remember the echo of the food court and the smell of perfume that seemed to follow us from store to store. My mom liked to shop in bursts, fast and efficient, and I just kind of trailed behind her, zoning out, holding on to the edge of the stroller or whatever toy I'd brought along. At some point, we stopped for ice cream. That part always stuck with me, probably because I hadn't finished mine by the time we got to the library. I remember looking down and seeing the cone still in my hand, the vanilla dripping a little over my fingers. That memory's weirdly sharp. The library was just a few blocks from the mall. We used to go there a lot, like it was part of our Saturday routine. I think my mom liked that it was quiet and had a place where I could sit still for more than 5 minutes. I don't remember thinking anything about that day was different. It was just a day, one of dozens exactly like it. Funny how it's the most normal seeming days that end up sticking with you the longest. The library always felt like a safe space, one of those places where nothing bad could really happen, not to a kid anyway. It had this little corner carved out for us, with big beanbags and bulky computers that took forever to load anything. I used to think those games were the coolest thing in the world, even though I probably wouldn't recognize them now if I saw them. That day, though, I couldn't sit still. I remember clicking around for a while, maybe on some old coloring game or one of those clunky learning programs with talking animals. But it didn't hold my attention. I wanted something else, one of those look and find books. I was obsessed with the ones that had pirate treasure maps and hidden monkeys or jewels tucked into the corners of crowded pages. That was my thing. So I got up. No announcement, no asking permission. I just drifted toward the back of the kids section where the shorter shelves curved around into this quiet little maze of picture books and early readers. It was kind of its own world back there. I don't think I even noticed how far I'd wandered until I was already deep in the aisle. It never crossed my mind to feel unsafe. That's the weird part. Being alone didn't feel wrong, it felt normal. My mom was always somewhere nearby, and adults didn't feel like something I had to worry about yet. I think about that now, and it honestly makes my stomach twist a little. But at the time, I was just looking for a book. That's it. Just a kid with sticky fingers and half a cone left, walking through the quiet shelves without a single thought that anything strange was about to happen. I remember the sound first, just this little ahem, or maybe a whisper, soft enough that I wasn't even sure I'd heard it right. I turned around kind of slowly, not really expecting anything, and that's when I saw him, or part of him anyway. Just half a face peeking out from behind a shelf, like he was playing hide and seek or something. It didn't scare me, not at all. If anything, it made me smile. He looked like one of those adults who was good with kids, overly expressive face, slightly exaggerated smile, like he was in on some harmless joke. At that age, I didn't have the instincts I do now. Back then, a friendly adult in a place like a library didn't raise alarms. He stepped out from behind the shelf, and I think he asked what I was looking for. I must have told him about the look and find books, because the next thing I remember, we were walking through the aisles together. He moved with a weird kind of calmness, like he already knew exactly where we were going. I didn't think anything of it. At one point, I'm almost sure I took his hand. That memory's foggy. Maybe it didn't happen, or maybe I've just tried not to remember it too clearly. But I think I did. I think I held his hand like it was normal. It's hard to explain now without cringing, but it didn't feel wrong in the moment. I trusted people too easily back then, especially grown-ups who talked softly and smiled wide. I still ask myself why I didn't think it was weird, why I didn't feel anything off. But I didn't, not yet. We ended up at this little round table near the kids' computer section, tucked into the corner where the noise from the rest of the library didn't really reach. He had helped me find the book I wanted, the pirate treasure one. I always gravitated toward that one. I think I liked imagining I was the one solving the puzzle, cracking the code. It made me feel clever. I remember how into it I was, flipping the pages, pointing at things, trying to beat him at finding the hidden objects. And he played along, real patient, real calm. He didn't rush me or get bored. It felt like he was actually paying attention, like he cared what I had to say. That kind of thing goes a long way when you're 6. He kept asking me stuff, nothing that set off any bells at the time. Just things like if I came here a lot, what grade I was in. If I liked books like this, I probably answered without a second thought. That's what you do when you're a kid, and someone's nice to you. You just talk. There's one thing he said that really sticks out now. I don't remember how it came up, but at one point he said something like, "Let's not tell your mom just yet. We'll surprise her when we're done." I barely registered it then. It sounded like nothing, like something a teacher or a babysitter might say to keep a kid focused. But now, that line plays on repeat in my head whenever I think about it. It was so casual, like he'd said it 100 times before, like he knew it wouldn't even raise a flag for me. And he was right. It didn't, not then. I think this was the part where things started shifting, even if I didn't realize it in the moment. He mentioned a playroom downstairs, said it was a little quieter, that we could take the book and finish the game down there. I remember looking at him and nodding like it made total sense. Thing is, I didn't even know the library had a downstairs. I'd been there so many times with my mom and she'd never mentioned it. But I didn't ask questions. I didn't think to. He said it like it was a normal thing, like everyone knew about it. So I followed. I remember holding the book to my chest and walking a few steps behind him, not scared, just curious. The staircase wasn't anywhere near the front desk or the kids section. It was way in the back, kind of tucked behind the non-fiction shelves. I don't think I'd ever even walked back there before. The light changed too. It got dimmer the farther we went. When we got to the bottom, there was this room with a bunch of toys, a Lego table right in the middle, some shelves with puzzles, chairs lined up against the walls like someone had used the space for a meeting or story time. It looked normal enough, maybe even inviting, like a hidden space for kids that most people just didn't know about. But after a few minutes, something started to feel off. Not in a loud way, more like a low hum I couldn't quite place. He was still acting nice, still calm, but my stomach had this tiny flutter, like it was trying to tell me something before I was ready to hear it. Like maybe I'd made a mistake without realizing it. It happened fast. One minute he was still talking in that calm voice, telling me to try the Legos or look at another puzzle. But his tone had shifted, just a little, but enough. It wasn't friendly anymore, not angry, exactly, but firmer. Like he was done pretending we were just two people looking at a book. He kept motioning for me to sit down, to pick something to play with. I didn't want to, I just didn't. And then the lights went out. It wasn't gradual, no flickering or warning, just darkness, thick and full like someone had flipped a switch. I remember the air felt heavier instantly, like even the quiet had changed. He said something about playing hide and seek, soft but deliberate, like he was still trying to make it a game, but it wasn't a game to me anymore. That was the moment everything inside me flipped. I wasn't confused or curious anymore. I was scared, really scared. My heart was beating in this weird, uneven way, and I couldn't tell where he was. His voice moved through the dark, closer, then further, then closer again. I remember calling out for my mom. I don't even know how loud I was. It might have come out like a whisper, or maybe it was a scream. I was frozen, like my body couldn't decide if I should hide or run. I felt a hand brush my arm, just a touch. But it was enough to knock me out of whatever freeze I was in. I ran. I don't remember planning it, or even thinking it. I just knew I had to go, that I couldn't be in that room anymore. That whatever this was, it wasn't just a strange moment anymore. It was something else. The hallway outside that room felt wrong. I don't know if the lights were actually off, or if it just seemed darker because my brain was spinning, but I remember the way it felt, like every shadow had grown teeth. I couldn't see clearly, and I didn't look back. I didn't want to know if he was still behind me. I ran up those stairs the way I used to run up from our basement at home when I'd switch off the lights and scare myself silly. Only this time the fear wasn't made up. It wasn't some childhood panic over nothing. This time there was someone real behind me. I could feel it. I didn't stop at the top. I didn't check where I was or who was around. I just kept going, straight toward the front of the library. I think I was yelling, but I don't remember the sound. Everything was moving so fast and slow at the same time. My mom was already there, near the front desk with a couple of librarians. I remember the way she looked at me, relieved and scared and angry all at once. I didn't even have to explain much. Just a few words spilled out, and she knew something was wrong. After that, things get blurry. I know there were police. I remember sitting down talking to a woman who asked me questions in that soft voice adults use when they're trying not to scare you more than you already are. They never found him. At least, not that I know of. I kept thinking someone would tell me he'd been caught, but that never came. I still wonder how he got out without anyone seeing, how someone like that could disappear so easily, and how close it all came to being something even worse. That semester was brutal. Honestly, I don't even know how I got through it. I was doing a dual major, taking 6 classes, yeah, 6, and somehow thought adding an internship on top of that was a good idea. I don't think I really slept during those months. I'd close my eyes for a few hours here and there, but I was basically running on caffeine, stress, and whatever snacks I could shove in my backpack. Langston Library pretty much became my home base. It was the only place on campus that stayed open late, midnight, which felt like a gift back then. Everyone else I lived with was loud and always had people over, so trying to study in the apartment, not a chance. The library, though, it had this weird kind of stillness after 10 p.m., just the hum of laptops and the occasional page flip. I'd camp out in the same spot most nights, tucked between the back shelves where no one really wandered unless they were looking for something specific. That particular night, I was already fried. I had 3 back-to-back classes during the day, then rushed straight to my internship off campus. I didn't even stop to eat, just went straight to the library once I got back. I remember thinking I needed a solid 4 or 5 hours to get through all my notes before the 2 exams I had in the morning. At the time, I wasn't worried about anything except remembering formulas and definitions. I just needed to get through the night, like I had so many times before. But looking back now, I think something about that night was already off. I just hadn't noticed it yet. Langston wasn't packed that night, but it wasn't dead either. Enough students here and there to feel normal, like that usual late-night buzz where everyone's kind of half-zoned into their laptops, surviving on vending machine coffee and stress. I remember being relieved, honestly. There's a weird kind of safety in numbers. When it's too empty, the silence starts to feel heavy. I made a beeline for my usual spot, tucked behind the economics and public policy shelves. It's this narrow little area in the back that barely anyone uses unless they're lost or need a very specific book. That was the point. No distractions. No noise. Just me and whatever hell I needed to memorize that night. But then I saw him, older than the average student for sure. Late 40s? Maybe even 50, wearing this worn-out jacket, no backpack, no laptop, just a small notebook in his hand. He walked right past at least 4 empty tables on his way in and sat at mine, diagonally across like he was trying to be polite but still weirdly close. I remember freezing for a second, wondering if I should move, but I didn't. I just kept my eyes on my screen and pretended like it wasn't weird. Because maybe it wasn't. Maybe he just liked this corner too. Except, he started talking, not in an obvious way, nothing overtly creepy, just small comments, asking if I was in a certain econ class, rambling about a professor. I kept giving short answers hoping he'd take the hint, but he didn't. He wasn't loud, he wasn't rude, but he was too curious, too familiar, like he already knew me or expected me to know him. And even though I tried to shake it off, something about his presence just lingered, like a shadow in the room I couldn't explain. I kept going back and forth in my head, wondering if I was just being paranoid. Like maybe I'd just been awake too long, maybe the stress was making me jumpy. I didn't want to be that person, the one who turns nothing into something. But it wasn't nothing. The more I tried to ignore him, the more obvious it became. He wasn't pretending to study anymore. He wasn't even flipping through the notebook he brought. He just sat there, staring sometimes. Not in a constant, aggressive way. It was subtler than that. He'd glance up when he thought I wouldn't notice, hold the look for too long, then shift away when I turned slightly. He was waiting for something. I don't know what, but it wasn't good. I don't even remember deciding to get up. I just did. Like my body stopped waiting for permission from my brain. I walked straight to the front, past the shelves, the empty tables, the glowing rows of flickering screens, and went right to the security guy by the door. I didn't try to explain too much. I just said, "Something feels off about that man," and I pointed. The guard didn't even hesitate. He walked over while I hovered near the front, pretending to scroll on my phone but not really seeing anything. I kept watching. They asked him for ID. He didn't have any. Said he forgot it. When they asked which dorm he lived in, he stalled, fumbled for words, said he couldn't remember. Who forgets where they live? Eventually they walked him out, quietly, calmly, but I saw his face as they passed the glass near the entrance. Just before they hit the doors, he looked back at me. Just one glance. It wasn't angry. It was knowing. Now that I think about it, and I mean really think about it, there was something weird the day before all this happened. It hadn't seemed like a big deal at the time, or maybe I just didn't let myself believe it was one. I'd come back from class, just a normal afternoon, already planning out what I had to cram that night. I remember juggling a coffee in one hand, laptop bag on my shoulder, already exhausted and not even halfway through the week. And then I saw it, my apartment door, not shut all the way, just cracked. It stopped me cold. I always lock the door. Always. It's a habit, muscle memory. I don't even think about it, but that day, it was sitting there just barely ajar, like someone had closed it too softly or hadn't meant to. I remember just staring at the doorframe for a while, like maybe if I looked long enough it would make sense, like the lock would suddenly explain why it failed me. I stepped in slowly, checked the place out. Everything looked untouched. My laptop was still on the desk, my backpack in the same slump against the wall, dishes still in the sink from breakfast. Nothing missing, nothing moved, and yet the window in my bedroom was unlatched. That part still makes my stomach flip. I never unlatch it, ever, especially not in winter, and especially not with how easy it is to climb onto the ledge from outside. But I told myself it was fine, that I must have rushed out, that maybe I didn't turn the key all the way. It's easy to explain things away when nothing bad has happened yet. When it still feels like you're overthinking, I shouldn't have brushed it off. I keep telling myself that. I stayed longer than I should have. Not because I was deep in the zone or anything. I wasn't really even reading by the end, just staring at the same sentence over and over, letting the words blur until they didn't mean anything anymore. The whole time I was thinking about what happened earlier. That man, the way he looked at me, how easily he lied, the way he just walked out, like it didn't matter. Midnight came fast. Langston Library always emptied out quick once the hour hit. 1 minute it's buzzing with people cramming, and the next it's just the hum of overhead lights and a few forgotten notebooks. I packed up slowly, not because I wanted to stay, but because I kept telling myself I didn't have a reason to be scared, that the guy was gone, that I was just tired. It was so quiet outside. Campus always felt weird late at night, but this was worse. Not eerie in a spooky story kind of way, just too still. No footsteps, no passing cars, just me and the sound of my own bag shifting on my back. And then I heard it. One step, just one, behind me. It echoed too loud, like the air itself wasn't used to being broken anymore. I stopped walking, but I didn't turn around right away. I think part of me was hoping it was nothing, that I'd imagined it, but I hadn't. I started walking faster. The second I picked up speed, I heard it again. Another step, this time matching mine. Then I knew I wasn't alone, and whoever was back there, they weren't trying to stay hidden anymore. The sound of someone else running behind you. There's no mistaking that. Not when it's real. Not when it's closing in. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't say anything. I just sat there with my hands shaking. Not even crying yet. Just stuck, frozen, trying to understand how real it had just gotten. I didn't make it far, not with my backpack dragging at my shoulders like an anchor. I don't even think I had time to scream. 1 second I was running, and the next, he had me, slammed me hard against the pavement. The sound of it felt louder than it should have been. I remember the sharp crack of my knee hitting concrete, and the sudden rush of pain that made everything else blur for a second. Then his hand was over my mouth, firm, like it belonged there, like he'd done that before. That part sticks with me more than anything. How sure he was of himself, how practiced it felt. I was just some random girl to him, and somehow he already knew exactly what to do. He kept hissing these threats, low and frantic, right in my ear. I could barely breathe. He started pulling me toward the edge of campus, away from the path, toward the thin stretch of woods that sat just behind the dorm buildings. I didn't even know what was happening in real time. My brain just kept skipping like a scratched record. This isn't real, this isn't real, this isn't real. I think I tried to scream. I don't remember doing it, but something must have come out because suddenly there were voices, feet pounding pavement, 2 guys yelling, running at us. I don't remember what they said. I just remember the man stopping, looking at them, then looking down at me, and he let go. He was gone before they reached me, just vanished into those trees like the dark swallowed him whole. It didn't take long. I thought it would, but it didn't. University police pulled the footage from the library, and there he was, clear as day, just standing there by the table right across from me. The way he looked at me, even in the still frame, it made my stomach flip, like he knew the camera was there and didn't care, like none of it mattered to him. They sent the picture out to every student. Phones buzzed, inboxes flooded. That face on every screen, and it worked. Someone spotted him a few hours later at a bar a couple blocks off campus, the Ember House, I think. Some dive that always smelled like bleach and stale beer. They picked him up right there at the bar. No struggle, no scene, like he wasn't even trying to run. Everyone called it lucky. And yeah, maybe it was. But I can't stop thinking about how close it was. How quiet the campus felt right before it happened. How he waited until it was just me and him out there. No noise, no help. Just silence and timing. I don't know what he wanted. I don't think I want to know. There's a part of me that wonders how long he'd been watching, whether this was just random or something else. I keep thinking back to my apartment door, the unlatched window, the way he smiled like he already knew me, and maybe the scariest part. No one told me anything else after that. Not really. They arrested him. Yeah, but no trial updates, no full name, no background. Just a message from campus safety saying it was handled. Handled. I guess that's supposed to be enough. But it doesn't feel like the end. Not really. You ever get that feeling where something feels off, but you can't explain why? Not like jump scare off, just off in a way that hums in the background, subtle enough that you keep going, but it keeps tapping at you. That's how this night started. I used to work nights at Eastfield Library, second job, decent hours, nothing fancy. I'd head there straight after my day shift, clock in, and just do what needed to be done. Shelving returns, tidying up, locking the place down. I'd done it so many times it felt mechanical, like muscle memory. Fridays were always the slowest, and this one felt no different at first. Erin was on with me that evening. She did her shift, said her goodbyes, and was out right at 9, same as every week. Then it was just me and the building, and honestly, I kind of liked that part. It was quiet, peaceful even, or it used to be. I started cleaning like usual, picked up the carts of returns, wiped down the front counter, straightened the chairs around the tables, just going through the motions. But for some reason, I kept noticing the silence. Not the peaceful kind of silence either. The kind that makes your ears ring a little. The kind that makes you feel like you're waiting for something to break it. I figured maybe I was just tired. 2 jobs back to back can do that to your head. But still, every creak in the floorboards, every low mechanical hum from the ceiling vents, it all felt sharper than usual. Like the building was watching me work. I tried not to overthink it, but I remember looking at the clock and thinking, if I move fast enough, I can be out of here before 10:30. That was the plan anyway. I was knee-deep in restocking DVDs when I heard it. A soft thud. Barely anything. Could have been the air system kicking on or a chair settling. But I stopped, just for a second. Not because it was loud, because it wasn't. You know how libraries have that weird echo even when they're quiet. Sounds carry different. This wasn't echoey. This was localized. Controlled, like something gently hitting the floor, not falling from any real height. I didn't rush to check it out or anything. I was still in that headspace where you brush stuff off. Probably nothing. That kind of thought. But I still walked a few aisles over, just to peek. And there it was. A thick hardcover, blue spine, older print. Definitely non-fiction, just lying open on the carpet. Not slid from the edge. Not sticking halfway out. It was open, like someone had been reading it and dropped it mid-page. Pages folded under like it landed face down with no warning. I just stood there staring at it for longer than I probably should have. Couldn't tell you why. Something about the way it was positioned didn't sit right. It was too perfectly random, too neatly misplaced. Like, staged. But that's a weird thought to have in the moment, right? So I pushed it aside. Books fall. Happens all the time. I've knocked plenty over just brushing past a shelf too fast. That's all it was. Still, I remember looking down the rest of the aisle before I bent to pick it up. Didn't see anyone. Didn't hear anything else. I put it back where it belonged and kept going. But even as I walked away, I couldn't shake this weird little itch in the back of my mind. That hum again. Like the building had exhaled something it wasn't supposed to. I went back to shelving, telling myself to just finish the job and get out. The DVDs were easy. Small section, alphabetical order, no real thinking required. I was moving faster now, partly because I wanted to be done, but also because I didn't like how quiet the place felt after that book thing. And then it happened again. Another sound, same kind of soft thud, but closer this time. Not a repeat of the first. A new one. It made me stop mid-step, like my brain needed a second to register whether or not I was imagining it. But no, it was definitely real. So I followed the sound. And this time it wasn't one book, it was two. Different aisle, not even near the last one. One was some crime novel, the other looked like an old poetry collection. Just lying there, right in the middle of the floor, a few feet apart. Same weird randomness. Not fallen from the edge. No sign of a shelf collapsing. Just there. That's when something clicked in my head. I hadn't seen anyone else in the building. Not since the last two patrons left. I locked the front door after they walked out, same as always. I even double-checked it. So unless someone had come in while I was taking the trash out and somehow snuck by me without making a sound, they had to already be inside. Or they were hiding. I looked around, tried to listen for movement. Footsteps, anything. But all I got was that thick, swallowing silence again. And suddenly the space between the shelves didn't feel so open anymore. It felt like there were places someone could be. Places I couldn't see without walking into them. I didn't want to admit it, but I wasn't alone. One weird thing about Eastfield Library, not many people know this unless they've worked there long enough, is how the lights work. Most of them are controlled from the main panel, but a few, especially in the older back sections, are motion sensitive. Something about energy efficiency, budget cuts, all that. They don't always work great. Sometimes they flicker before they fully kick in. Other times they don't turn on at all unless you practically wave your arms at them. But that night, they worked a little too well. I was shelving some non-fiction, biographies, I think, somewhere near the far side wall when I heard the faintest little click. Then I caught it in my peripheral vision, a soft glow flickering to life. That cold, flickering overhead light coming on at the very end of the opposite aisle. I hadn't been down there yet. I knew that for sure. That row hadn't seen me since I clocked in, and unless the shelves had started moving on their own, something had tripped that sensor. I froze. Like actually froze, mid-movement. I had two books in my hands. Didn't even realize I was still gripping them. And for some reason, I just stared down that aisle waiting for what? Someone to step out? Another light to flicker on? I don't know. I kept telling myself it could have been a glitch. The system's old, it does weird things sometimes. But deep down, I think I already knew. I just didn't want to admit it. Because if that light turned on by motion, and it wasn't me, then something else was moving around in that building. and whatever it was, it hadn't wanted me to know it was there. Not yet. I don't know how long I stood there after that light flicked on, trying to decide if I should go check or just pretend I hadn't seen it. But I didn't have time to choose, because then I heard something else, another sound, totally different from the soft thuds before. This one wasn't subtle. It wasn't loud either. Not exactly, but clumsy, like someone trying not to make noise but failing at it. Shuffling, dragging, and the unmistakable sound of plastic bins being bumped or moved. The kind we keep in the children's section. That's where the sound was coming from. At first, my brain went somewhere logical. Maybe a kid got left behind. It's not impossible. Parents get distracted. Kids wander. I've seen it happen. So I started walking that way, slowly, still hoping for a rational explanation. But as I got closer, my stomach dropped. It wasn't a kid. At the far end of the children's aisle, crouched low near the floor, was a woman. She was barefoot, pale legs, wearing what looked like a thin, wrinkled nightgown, not dressed for the weather, not dressed for anything really. And she wasn't just standing there, she was digging, going through the lower shelves like an animal, grunting, tossing books behind her without even looking at them. The sound of paper hitting the floor just kept coming. And the way she moved, it was wrong. Her back was hunched, arms jerking in these weird, uncoordinated bursts, like she didn't know how her limbs were supposed to work, like her brain wasn't fully communicating with her body. I didn't say anything. I just stood behind a shelf, staring through the cracks. I don't know how long enough to realize this wasn't someone who needed help finding a bathroom. Something was seriously wrong. I didn't even think. I just turned and bolted straight to the office. My hands were already shaking before I got the key in the door, locked it behind me, flipped the switch for the overhead light, and immediately grabbed the landline. Thank God we still had that thing. I don't think I even had my cell phone on me that night, or if I did, it was dead in my bag somewhere. I kept telling myself maybe she was sick, maybe she was having some kind of episode. I wanted to believe that. It would make sense. Sort of, enough to ground me anyway. But the image of her barefoot, slouched, thrashing through the kids section kept flashing through my head. People don't move like that when they need help. And she didn't look like she was trying to find anyone. She looked like she didn't even know what she was doing. I tried to talk to the dispatcher like I had it together, like I wasn't hiding in a locked room, because a woman in a nightgown had been crawling around our early reader section. But as I gave them the address, my eyes went to the little window in the door. The blind was pulled shut, but my hand moved before I could stop it. Just a tiny gap, just enough to peek out, and she was right there. Her face was pressed against the glass like she'd been waiting for me to look, like she knew I would. Her skin looked waxy under the office light, and her pupils, if you could call them that, were massive, just black, like nothing else was behind them. She was mouthing something, but they weren't words. Or maybe they were. I couldn't tell. All I know is, I've never felt more certain that someone wasn't with us, even though everything about her was completely human, and she had come straight to where I was. I didn't leave the office until long after the sirens stopped. The police got there fast. 2 cars and an ambulance, lights cutting through the windows like flashing red warnings. I didn't even see them come in. I just stayed put. I couldn't bring myself to open the door, not even a crack. I just heard everything from inside. There was yelling, not hers, them. The officers. I heard scuffling. Something crash hard against a shelf, maybe one of the reading chairs tipping over. Then more footsteps, louder ones. A sort of struggle happening right on the other side of the wall. But I didn't move. I don't even think I breathed right. Eventually, it quieted down. I heard the medic crew talking in low voices, heard the back doors of the ambulance slam shut, but I never saw her again. Didn't even peek through the blinds. I didn't want to. When the officers finally knocked on the office door, I just nodded through the glass until they gestured that it was okay to come out. But I waited. I waited until the library was empty again. Fully empty this time. They didn't tell me much, just that she'd been taken in for evaluation. Whatever that means. I never got a name, never heard anything about her after that, and I never figured out how she got inside. Maybe it was when I took the trash out. Maybe she slipped in then, quiet and fast. Or maybe she was already in the building before I locked up, just tucked away somewhere I didn't think to check. But the thing that really sticks with me, I don't think I'll ever know. That's the part that still eats at me. Not what she did, not how she moved or looked or sounded, just the simple fact that she was there, and I had no idea.